Well, I must say, that's very high praise, guys. Thank you very much. What do we think about the sound volume tonight? I think I've cracked it. It took me a little while. But there should be a reasonable sound quality tonight. It should be nice and loud. And I think I've managed to get rid of the hiss. Or the static. I'm not sure how I managed it. I just futzing around with some various settings on good old OBS. And speaking of OBS, is there some sort of timekeeping thing in it? Because I've been sat here for the last 5 minutes waiting for it to be half past. Whereas, a few weeks ago, I'd be, you'd still be waiting for me. But anyway, it's nice to see you guys in the chat. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. We're going to be cracking on with good old Gabriel Seth down here. I've got a few of the paints ready to go. Hopefully we'll have a decent stream tonight. And speaking of my streams, let me give a quick shout out to my 3rd tier and above Patreons. And I start with Reese, as always, and Tim and Wayne. Thank you very much. Without all of my fantastic Patreons, these streams wouldn't even happen in the first place. So thank you all. And if you want to become a Patreon as well, you can check the link is in the description below, and it'll occasionally appear in the chat while we're going on it. But I'm looking forward to this. We're getting on with good old Seth. It's been a couple of weeks since I did him. The last time I was supposed to be doing him, I was rearranging the studio this time last week. So thankfully, we're back at it as normal. I do remember, actually, I was sat here waiting for the stream to start, and I just realised if I move my head a little bit, I left the door open, and at about 7:30, it's going to get a bit noisy through there. So let me just shut that door. There we go, just like that. And we can get cracking on with tonight's show. So as always, feel free to pipe up in the chat while we're talking. I'm feeling I'm going to stretch my my skills tonight, because the last time I did a cape, let's move that into a position. Let's move the camera a little bit into a better position so I can actually paint. The last time I did a cape, it was on the War Games exclusives version of Mephiston, and I attempted to do some layering, and it kind of came out okay. But I think, the whole point of this Thursday night stream is not only to be painting characters that everybody knows, but also it's a way for me to flex my skills, as it were, and possibly learn a few new things. These are not commission jobs. These are not, things that I'm trying to get done for a game. These are not, they're, a lot of them I've paid for, but I'm not in any rush to get them finished. So this is a perfect opportunity for me to try out new things and just push the boat out a little bit. And I think I'm going to try and do some layering tonight. Also, if you're a watcher, like a couple of weeks ago, I actually drilled a hole through the back of Gabriel Seth's backpack there. So we're gonna just turn that into a bullet hole, I think, which is nice. We'll hopefully get some of that done today, and so that I don't get bogged down with waiting for wash to dry and possibly waiting for layers to dry as well. The first thing I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to whack down a base coat on this guy, and then get him washed at the end of the show. But then I will have other things to do, so we're not actually waiting for it. So that when we get round to actually starting on the guy himself, it means we're actually ready to go. So, as always, feel free, have a chat, talk amongst yourselves, talk with me, and we'll get cracking on with the show. As always. And so like I just said, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to whack some corn red onto Gabriel Seth's body. I'm going to whack some of that down there. I wonder if you can see, if I can push my wet palette up just a little bit. Can we move it to just a little bit? Come on, move out that way, Seth. There we go. Let's pop that there so you can just about see what I'm working on here. Pop that on there. So, how are you all this evening, and who have we got? Have we only got Viking and Chris in the chat tonight? We're certainly missing a few people. Wayne says he'll drop in at some point later on and give a shout. But as always, don't forget, you know, if you want, share the stream as well. Get more people involved. The more viewers, the more chat we can have. But I'm just going to wallop on some colour down here. I think I picked up completely the wrong brush for this. This is not going to hold together. Show you shenanigans. Oh, we could get up to some shenanigans, I'm sure. If I actually pick the right brush. Oh, this is terrible. It's a terrible brush. What is this? This is a just cheap old brush. That is not going to work tonight. Let's find a different one. I've got plenty of brushes up here. I've been using a lot of them today though, doing some videos. Which actually is something that I've been doing as well, is that I've decided I've got some videos on the go. But my Patreons have already seen a few of them, or a couple of them. But there's not going to be many non-live shows uploaded to the channel anytime soon. With a new way of filming, I am going to be getting a big backlog in place. So for now, the only thing this channel is going to be doing is my live shows. Hey Tim, you're here but only watching today. You've got some stuff to write. Well, that's fair enough. I would usually follow that up with a question like, you know, what are you writing? But if you're busy, you won't even be able to answer that. Let's add a little touch more red onto the palette. That pin does not feel very secure that I've put in his foot down there. He is wobbling around all over the place. As you see, I did prime him before the show. I was going to pop in some zenithal highlighting as well, but I thought I couldn't be bothered with that with this guy. He's given me a bit of a headache already, so I'm just going to paint him up normally this time, I think. But actually, that does remind me as well. Is why don't you throw down your suggestions? Now, the Thursday night stream is always to do with named characters. It's you know, it's become a theme after a big discussion with Patreons, and during a stream we've decided that this show is going to be all about those named characters that everybody knows and loves. But any named character is up for nomination. It just depends on how much they're going to cost me to buy, depending on whether I'll do them. And we got some new watchers. So basically, how it works is that anybody can nominate a character that they want to see on the channel, and if I like the idea, if I think I can do it, it gets put on a shortlist, and all of my Patreons get to vote on the shortlist. So from $1 up, absolutely all of my patrons get to choose from the shortlist what the next project's going to be, and I'm always taking suggestions. The only reason why it won't ever end up on the shortlist is if it's immoral, or sometimes it won't make it to a shortlist because it's too expensive. But other than that, anything's up for grabs. You're writing a hard one to explain is rhymes for Sinterklaas. Well, evidently I'm terrible at Dutch, You don't know what to call it in English. Fair enough. You said that this Sinterklaas is something to do with Christmas, is that? Captain Cortez. Now, which one's that? Who's that? Would I find that as the GW store, or is that a model that you'd have to create, you know, like put in, you know, kit bash? Right, so he has now been base coated with a lovely corn red, which is lovely. It's a very deep red going on. So he's going to go over there along with the known oil. That's going to dry. And now what I need to do is I need to prepare for some layering. And so we've got some Zandri dust here, which is the base coat for the it's the base paint of the cloak. So here we go. We're going to pop some of that on there, like that. This brush needs cleaning. Just wipe that off, and then I'm also going to, on the palette, pop on some Ushabti bone, which is where I want the top highlight to be. Yep, he's on eBay these days. He's a captain, and the Crimson Fist was Pedro Cantor's right-hand man. All right, I'll make a note of that. And I will have a look to see if it's viable for me to add him to the shortlist. And while no, next is I'm going to, right, so what I want to do is I need to thin this down quite a bit. So I'm going to pop on a few drops of Lamy medium next to each of the colours, like so, and then I am going to mix those up to make a really nice thin colour, hopefully, which you can't see there because my palette's not quite far enough up. Oh, and it's really light as well. And then I'm going to mix this up as well. Alright, so then what I want to do is I then want to start dragging down the Ushabti, the Zandri dust this way, and then I want to drag the Ushabti bone this way, let's get some more of this in there. And Orc Warboss pulled his arm that had his power fist on, and then Cortez picked it back up and killed the Warboss with it. Okay, so he's a badass then. Alright, so let's just drag the paint this way. There we go. And then drag some more of this paint this way, and then hopefully somewhere in there we've got some form of blend that should hopefully give us, there we are. Right, okay, let's see how this works. So like I said, I'm just flexing my skills, I'm playing around. An orc with a power fist, that would be an interesting combination. Wow, yeah, that would pack a punch. Oh no, that was terrible. Nope, that is in a few weeks. Google Sinterklaas when you have a minute. It's a big happening for kids. Has it something to do with Christmas? I mean, is it something to do with this type of time of year? So let's grab some Xandri dust straight up. Start painting this on here. And it's a very Dutch thing. Yeah, I imagine it would be. I mean, it's if it doesn't have an English translation per se, then yeah, I imagine it would be very Dutch. Alright, so let's start popping down some of this Xandri dust on anything where the shade that was put on hasn't settled. You googled it, we don't have it here. No, yeah, that's fair enough. But I'm just curious as to what it is. I'd love if somebody would like to educate the group as to what it is and what it means. I'm always fascinated about other people's things. No, it's got nothing to do with Christmas. Oh, fair enough. It just so happens to be that close to Christmas. Right. Let's pop some of this down there as well. Oh, get in there. Saint Nicholas you might translate it to, but it is a name. Sinterklaas, Dutch pronunciation, or Saint Nicholas. Okay, so but Saint Nicholas is the etymology of Santa Claus is Saint Nicholas, isn't it? So is Sinterklaas kind of the where Santa came from in the first place, and then over the years he's been in other parts of the world has been rolled up to, you know, for Christmas Eve. I mean, it seems what it is. I mean, Saint Nicholas is Santa, which is Christmas Eve. So in our culture, your Sinterklaas is a Christmas thing, whereas you've kept it separate because, you know, it originated with you guys. Right. It's more that their Saint Nicholas is our Santa, to be honest with you, Chris. It seems that we've pinched it. We've pinched it and probably butchered it as well into something that's much, much different than what it was originally. As with most of various traditions and so on, almost indistinguishable from the original. Every year, Sinterklaas and his helpers, Peyton, come from Spain by boat. He gives presents to the kids, at least if you're a good kid. If you were bad, he would take you back to Spain. Wow. All right. Well, here's a little lesson then. So Santa Claus in our culture, I make it sound like you're a complete foreigner, but no, I mean Santa Claus does something similar, where his helpers are little elves, lives in the North Pole, and oh, so Wargamer Viking put a dot in between his words. And so he comes from the North Pole. He comes around on Christmas Eve to give gifts if you're good. Whereas he doesn't take you away if you're naughty. He's traditionally supposed to have left a piece of coal if you were naughty, rather than giving you gifts. But it sounds like the etymology is very similar. That they've come from similar places in culture. From, yeah, legendary figure based on St. Nicholas, patron saint of children. Yeah, it sounds like they're the same thing, just a different story. He comes from Madrid, to be precise. Wargamer Viking, well, we technically both have St. Nicholas in Christmas, but we changed it to Santa, and also Coca-Cola made him red. Yeah, that's true. There we go, put a space between Santa and also, there you go. Yeah, that's the bot catching out a dot as being part of a web page. Doesn't let you do it. Wayne had that issue last week as well. Skinderclass is always on his horse. They walk the roofs and listen and look if you've been a good kid. It's similar. Santa comes around with his sleigh of reindeer that can fly, and but he just knows. He has a list of good and bad children. He's been spying on us all year, and then he knows if you've been sleeping or been good. And he knows. He has connections. Right, this is where it kind of fell apart last time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit of this, because it hasn't really worked how I wanted it to. And I'm going to mix up a nice kind of, that's a little bit lighter. Ever so lighter. There we go. Let's mix up. There we go. Look at that. All right. Okay. So now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to come back over it with this slightly lighter colour. It's very thin as well, so it's almost a glaze. Wonder if this is going to start taking the paint off. I'll have to wait for it to dry a little bit. Looks like it's coming down alright. The history behind it has something to do with a Turkish noble, yeah, St. Nicholas, Turkish guy, yeah, who frees enslaved kids and gives them jobs and pays them. Yeah, it sounds, I tell you what, Tim, it does sound to me like the etymology between the two characters is almost identical. It's just at some point they split for whatever reasons. They are virtually the same guy. They have exactly the same root. They're just, some of the differences are very minute. I mean, Santa Claus comes from the North Pole. He pulls around by reindeer that can fly. Santa comes on Christmas Eve instead. I thought Santa was Christian light celebrations. Not to my knowledge. To be honest with you, I'm not sure that Christians have any light celebrations. I'm not too sure on that one. I think you're right, but we're Dutch and like to think we're special. Fair enough. I mean, to be fair, I mean, you've pretty much got the same stories going around the world, haven't you, really? If I remember rightly, I think somebody even said to me once that even all the religious books on the planet, they all have a flood story. Literally all of them have a Noah's Ark type flood story. So it's fascinating, really, some of these fables that come through. They have big things in common. We never did any gift giving with Christmas. Oh, really? That's something from the last 5 years. You've only been giving gifts at Christmas for 5 years. Well, tomorrow will be interesting. Why would tomorrow be interesting? What's tomorrow? Friday. These books are all written by the same man, I think. Yeah, probably. I did theorize to myself that actually that you know, considering the religions, especially the big ones, most of them have a one god kind of story, and you're just like, hang on a minute. If you all believe in only one god, then could it be possible that you're all praying to the same bloke or woman, whichever way you want to believe? You hate Christmas. To be fair, you're not the only one. Certainly, I mean, you see, the whole point of Christmas, in my opinion, way back when, is just to get through the winter. It's a celebration, just to, keep the spirits up and get yourself through the cold, dark winters of, especially in days long gone by when things would start getting, pretty desperate towards the end. And the whole point of it is just to celebrate and just keep warm and do that sort of stuff. And then obviously it's just been growing and growing and growing over the years into what it is now, which is buy things for everyone, spend all your money. Because you're having a painting session with Reese. Oh, right, fair enough. Yeah, Reese is a fantastic painter. Her edge highlighting is legendary. I can only dream to be as good as that. I'm quite happy with my slightly rougher approach at painting. Kind of got happy with where I am there. Let's say ditch Christmas and start celebrating Thanksgiving. Oh, goodness me. Dear. That's even worse. Let's just ignore the reality of history and just make it up as we go along. Sinterklaas were all out with gifts. The day Sinterklaas leaves is the 5th of December. 3 weeks later is Christmas. You need to learn how to edge highlight. One of the tricks I've found with edge highlighting is the less the brush moves, the better. The tip of the brush, if you're touching the model and the bristles start to bend, you're pressing too hard. Just leave the bristles to stay as straight as possible. Let's ditch everything and buy more Toys for Us. Nah, that's a celebration I can get behind. When I start celebrating Thanksgiving, I want to steal someone's country and give it back and thank them for it. Yep, pretty much. Righty ho. Let's pop. So I'm hoping that I've done this alright this time. I'm just popping up a final highlight on these. I didn't layer it up as much as I could have done. I don't think the thing here, the swatch here, that was supposed to be more of a gradient going right the way along. Maybe I need to practice some palette control perhaps. But for now I'm happy with the way this is going. I've added a few more layers than I did with the Mephiston model. So we'll see what's going on here. Once it's dried, we'll see how well that's turned out. We'll come on the inside as well. We'll come along here. Like that. I think this highlight is a bit too stark for the colour beneath it. Oh, I'm happy with that, I think. There we go. It seems to be a little bit gradient. There we go. I tried to use the edge of the brush, not the tip. No, yeah, that's what I mean though. When you put the edge of the brush to the model, so if you've got an edge and you're putting the edge to the, if your bristles are bending, you're pressing too hard, you literally just want to bring it up enough to just touch the model, and the less those bristles move, the thinner the line you're going to get. And it is all about thinning your paint enough as well, which again Reese is fantastic at. She doesn't use a wet palette. She just puts a paint in a pot, paint on a palette, and she just thins it to exactly what she wants it to be. It's fantastic. Right. So what I'm going to do now is, now that I've done that cape, we're going to set that down there. Hopefully that will dry a little bit. I think the red here will be dry enough for me to wash that, so I'm going to do an all over wash there. Yeah, once I go used to a wet palette, I don't go back to it very often. Don't go back very often. It's one of those things. I mean, I don't need to thin my paint with a wet palette. So it is probably a reason why I can't do it without a wet palette, is that I can't get used to thinning my paint. So it also means I don't use a product that Reese often uses as well, which is Flow Improver. And It breaks the tensile strength of the water, and it just collapses, so everything's just so much smoother, which is why she's able to get those fantastic results on large areas without using an airbrush. I actually made my wet palette out of the Games Workshop box of sand. Absolutely. Yep, you can make a wet palette. I did a whole video on wet palettes, actually. You'll find that on the channel somewhere. There's a ton of ways of making a wet palette. I bought mine because, quite frankly, it looks good on camera, rather than, you know, a piece of, you know, Tupperware tub or whatever that I picked up from nowhere. It looks smart, which is why I use it. But yeah, wet palettes everywhere. Right, let's move on to some layering of the gold. Oh, I tell you what we'll do, actually, before we do anything, let's damage the back of his backpack, or at least let's make the back of his backpack look good after I damaged it. Where's me knife? Oh, don't tell me I've lost another knife. Ah, there it is. You didn't know that your Imperial Knight was actually painted by hand without flow improver? Well, did Reese do an Imperial Knight for you? Or you did it without flow improver? Right. Let's make this hole look like it's actually a bullet hole. I'm getting that knife in there and start spreading some of this out. There we go. Take a chunk out of the side there. There we go, that'll do. There we are. Right, we'll paint that silver. Oh, the Imperial Knight you shared on your page, you painted by yourself without flow improver. No, it's good going. It is possible. I don't get me wrong. I mean, it is possible to get a fantastically smooth finish without flow improver. Flow improver makes it easier, because the tensile strength of water can sometimes leave the paint to not dry flat as it's drying, whereas the flow improver will break that. And you can tell that if you get some water and drop it onto a flat surface, it will always bead up, and then if you want to spread that water around, it too will also, you know, just bead up. It will just break up and bead up. Once you put flow improver in, you can then spread it around thinner and thinner and thinner and larger area, and it won't break up and bead. It will just spread around until obviously you reach a point where it can no longer hold itself together because you spread it so thin, and then it will start breaking up. And of course, if it's a waterproof surface, you won't be able to do that test. But I did it on a kitchen work surface, and actually that gives me an idea for a video. There we go. That's what these shows are for. Right. What I'm going to do is I am going to add a little bit of highlighting to the gold, which I've already said that already, but now I'm actually going to do it. You may need to get some. Yeah, definitely. It's fantastic stuff. There you go. That stuff. It's a big old bottle like that. It'll cost you about 7 or 8 quid, I think. Go to the range. It's cheap. Well, it seems expensive, but you use this stuff like 10 parts water to 1 part of this stuff. And you think about it, this is 125 mil. You could make 1¼ litres of flow improver water with this stuff. It's ridiculous. Right. Wow. Yeah, I mean, especially if you think about how much water you actually use to thin your paints down as well. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's quite cost effective. I've no idea how much of the stuff Reese has got through, but I don't think she gets through it very often. The trouble is, though, it doesn't work very well in I mean, with a wet palette. If you wet palette in properly, you don't really need to thin your paint because it's already thin. So adding flow improver to, I did try adding flow improver to this wet palette once. It didn't go very well. By the end of the day, the entire palette was just covered in very thin, very runny paint. So you might want to consider, depending on whether a wet palette is your thing or if flow improver is your thing. It's very rare that you'll actually be able to do both. I even had no idea the range sold it. I tell you what, go to the range and go to their art section and find Winsor & Newton stuff. You'll find, I'll tell you what, I'll show you actually in a second. Let me just do this. The range sells some fantastic stuff that I can tell you exactly what it is in Citadel terms. And you realise just how much Citadel is expensive. I'm not doing so well to catch the edges of that. I will send you some pictures of when we celebrate it. Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd be interested actually to see if you've got any of the same traditions as we do, in terms of iconography of the day. And I make it sound like a religious thing, but no, what I mean is whether you use the same kind of symbolism as we do, even though it's slightly different. So, oops. As always, when I start concentrating on the little stuff, I stop talking, so just bear with me a second. Get the highlighting done on the back of the wings here. There we go. I think I'm happy with that. Right, we'll leave that to dry for a minute, and then I've got some things to show you. Right. Let me grab a few bits and pieces. What do we have here? Let me grab that, and that. Right. So I got 3 things to show you. and I will show you what they are in Games Workshop terms if I actually had some hard coat, which I don't. We'll start with hard coat, shall we? That's what hard coat is, right? It comes in a bottle this big at 12ml for, what is this? This is 12ml for what, about, is this one about £2? This one's Lamy medium, but the hard coat is about it's about £2.50 for, what's it? And this is 250ml, and it cost me about £7. That's hard coat, straight out of the bottle. This is what this is. The difference between this and this is that this has been diluted down with distilled water, or deionized water if you want. Again, deionized water I pick up 2 litres for £1 from Tesco's. That's 250ml for about £7 or £8. That cost me £2.50 for 24ml. I only use that because it's easier, it's already pre-made. There is a little bit of a learning curve to work out how much water to medium you need. And then finally, hiya Wayne, welcome back. Finally, we've got a Grell and Earth. Okay, this isn't from the range, but this is the same stuff. It was white, and I changed the colour of it by putting some paint in it. It's not looking so good at the minute. I think it's separating a bit, but that'll mix up all right. And yeah, that's again, that was about £7 or £8 off of eBay for 250ml, whereas that's 24ml for, you know, £5. This is crackle paste, if you're wondering. It's not crackle medium, it's crackle paste. Hey up, Wayne. I already said it, but I'll say it again. Would you like to see what we've done today? We've added some highlights to the gold, and we've done the cloak. And we've made a start on adding some colour to Gabriel Seth's body. Yeah, Citadel's expensive. It's really expensive. So, but, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, it also depends on how much you use the stuff, you know. If you're only going to use a little bit of it, you know, to be honest with you, if you're only going to use that much for, you know, 3 years worth of painting or whatever, you know, £2.50, it's not going to kill you. It's just I use a lot of it. What are we talking about? We're talking about some of the stuff that I buy that's instead of Citadel. Yeah, I did consider moving to Vallejo. Yeah, I have lots of Vallejo stuff. In fact, actually, if I bring you up here, you can see just over there. Ignore the ones at the front, but yeah, that's all Vallejo at the back there. I used a lot of it. In fact, if we poke over to which camera have we got? Actually, I'll tell you what, look, hang on a minute. Let's pop this number up. If I show you, it's a bit dark at the minute, hang on. I spin that round. All of my air paints are Vallejo as well. Ooh, let's pop that back there. Yeah, all of my air paints are Vallejo as well, just purely due to the fact that it's ridiculous trying to put Citadel airbrush paints into an airbrush. It's ridiculous. I currently use the Army Painter paintbrushes, and I did buy some of their paint, but I'm not overly impressed by the paint. Now, that's interesting. I've heard a lot of people say good things about Army Painter's paint. Not, I've never used it, so I wouldn't know. But it's interesting. Right, yeah. I just realised that I didn't actually wash the silver bits on here when I painted this last time. So we'll add some paint onto there now. In my opinion, what's better, GW or Vallejo? Honestly, in my opinion, there's not much difference. At the end of the day, I mean, paint is paint. As far as I'm concerned, the only difference that I have noticed with any real, that I could say with any real conviction, is the price. The paints act the same, they thin the same. I would argue that the metallics from GW remix, because evidently, I mean, metallics will always separate quicker than anything else. But the metallics from GW seem to mix easier. But that's kind of with no real experimentation. To be honest with you, as far as I'm concerned, and I've used a lot of both, paint's paint. I don't really notice much difference. It's just the price. I mean, a bottle of Vallejo comes in its standard at 17ml, about just under £2. Well, I can get them from the Weagles at just under £2. Whereas 12ml from Games Workshop will cost you about £2.50 ish. The only reason I tend to stick to GW paints is because of convenience and easy access to get them the same day. Yeah, I mean, you're Ipswich. The Ivory Goat are getting in quite a few Vallejo paints, which you can get them. If you're going into town to Games Workshop, you can go into the Ivory Goat and you can pick up quite a few Vallejo paints at the minute. £2 is cheap. GW works out more expensive. Yes, it does. I mean, yeah, it will do. Yes, 12ml, 17ml, £2.50 and just under £2. Yeah, I mean, it will work out. They do work out more expensive. You're getting more for less money. It's simple as that from Vallejo. But honestly, I don't see, with the act of actually using them, I don't really see much of a difference between them. And also, there was a big thing about doing this with the Games Workshop paints. Yeah, that wasn't worth it either. Because to be honest with you, it's a bad example because that was I haven't used it very much. But let me see about this one. No, well, that's not too bad either. Look at that. You're wasting just as much paint putting a dropper bottles. Dropper bottles are not better for your paints. Take it from me. Let me just grab one of my paints that I absolutely love to use, which is Vallejo Scarlet Red, is what I was doing for Vallejo. Yeah, paint goes everywhere. Dropper bottles over GW bottles? No, there's nothing in it. Okay, so I didn't know there was anybody in Ipswich sold Vallejo. Thank you for that. Yep, it's one of the things that Ivory Goat, when Langdon Games, when they started up, there was a question they asked: is there anything other than Games Workshop people want? And a lot of people were asking for Vallejo, including myself, because I want the entire range of both. I mean, there are more colours from Vallejo because of that. Actually, that does remind me. Actually, let's just switch this over, because actually there is something I want to talk about Vallejo and the difference between Citadel and Vallejo. But there's something about that. Ivory Goat and Langdon Games with my mate Shop Chris in Ipswich Town Centre. I mentioned Saturday night. Both are on Facebook and have websites. Yep. And yeah, I live in Ipswich. I told you, like 5 minutes away from you. Yeah. That's why I was remembering as I said it. Yeah. So there is one reason. You've never seen GW sell dropper bottles? No, you haven't. I bought them on eBay, and I took the GW bottle and put them into dropper bottles, and it was a waste of time. There's a big thing about people putting GW bottles into dropper bottles. Don't bother about it. Just don't do it. You waste just as much paint with both types of bottles. And the only reason to stop a dropper bottle from getting all gunky at the top is to wipe the paint off after every time you've used it. You're still wasting the paint. So I mean, there's no difference. But there is a difference between Vallejo and Citadel, which is important. Games Workshop have done in the past, and it is possible for them to do it in the future, is to change supplier. Where they get their paint from. When Games Workshop sell their paint, they get their paint from a supplier. Games Workshop do not make paint. And so they get it made for them, and then they put it on, they have the labels put on for them, and then they sell them. So Games Workshop do not make paint. So if, for argument's sake, Citadel decided to charge Games Workshop more money for the paint that they are selling to Games Workshop, Games Workshop will either raise their prices to coincide, or they will find somebody cheaper to make their paint for them. Vallejo, on the other hand, is a paint manufacturer. That's what they do. They make paint. So once they have a brand of paint, a color of paint that they sell, they will either stop making that paint, and you cannot get it anyway, or they continue to do so. The company could go out of business, which I highly doubt. But the point is, Vallejo make their paint, and so if you buy Vallejo's paint, you will always buy Vallejo's paint. They have their own chemical makeup, whatever their recipe is to make paint, and they also have their own color, and they know what their colors are, and they know how to make those colors, and so they will stay the same. And Vallejo will always be Vallejo paint. So if you buy a Vallejo bottle of paint now, in 5, 10, 15 years later, if they're still in business and they still make that particular paint that you want, you can still get it, and it will be exactly the same, unlike what GW have done in the past with Cote d'Arms, I believe. They changed supplier. It's as simple as that. So there is a difference between the two. Did you do the labels too? Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I took the label off the old GW bottle because they're the plastic things and they're reusable. On another small note, sound is so much better, no static. Yes, I know. It's brilliant. I spent about an hour earlier just futzing around with various sliders on various parts of the computer, and I seem to have cracked it. So I'm quite happy about that, and I've turned it up. I can also turn it up even higher so it's really loud but no static, although it does redline on the meter, so it would then blow speakers. So, or more to the point, it will distort. Now on my headphones, what you said earlier in Patreon chat, you do sound very, very slightly tinny, but I sound so much better. I think the tinny sound is the type of microphone I'm using. Now obviously you guys have probably seen it before, which is just here. I think it's the type of microphone I'm using, and perhaps if I bought myself a microphone that has on my lapel or a specific type of microphone, that would sort out. But I think for now we're good, and I'm going to use that. Buy the new rig, and then we could buy some more equipment further down the line. And yeah, it was Cote d'Arms. Yeah, exactly. There we go. So Cote d'Arms, they changed their paint, or GW decided to go with Citadel instead. For whatever reason it is, it's fairly irrelevant, really. But the point is, yeah, GW changed their supplier, and therefore a lot of the paints that people got used to, famously Goblin Green, you can't get them anymore. Cote d'Arms do still sell those paints that you can still get. But you know, the point is getting a hold of them and all that sort of thing. So yeah, there's quite a bit of information going on in there. Don't put your GW paints in dropper bottles. Paint is paint, and the only real difference is security and the colours that you use. And to be honest with you, it depends on what you feel about colour anyway. You know, I've used 2 or 3 different shades of red painting my Blood Angels, so, and I'm still learning, so I'm not really sure I'm too fussed about my paints being the same shade all the time. One of the upsides of GW paints, of course, is that yeah, when you're talking to somebody about what paint you use, if you use Games Workshop paints, everybody in the community knows what, you know, Mephiston Red looks like. Everybody knows what Khorne Red is. Everybody knows what Auric Armor Gold is. You kind of know. So maybe does that go in the pro side? You know, that everybody knows that GW paint colours are. Whereas if I tried to tell you Warlock Purple, on the other hand, from Vallejo, you know, some people were like, okay, so it's purple, but what kind of purple? So, you know, there we go. So I hope that's been helpful for you. Anyway, that killed about 20 minutes, didn't it? All right. Well, at least I was waiting for paint to dry. And we got through that while I was waiting for paint to dry. So let's have a look. Let's see how this is going. Yeah, it's still drying. So yeah, we're going to leave that there for a minute. One thing I do need to worry about actually is, or not worry about, I'm just thinking, don't the haven't Flesh Terrors got red on their backpacks, or are they completely black? I can't remember off the top of my head. I might have to have a look. Everybody knows what Macragge Blue looks like. Exactly. Yeah, and if I tried, yeah, Macragge Blue. Now, admittedly, with Vallejo, it's Ultramarine Blue, but you know, it's the same, you know, thing. I'm annoyed with GW because I cannot match my old Space Wolf themed paints from 15 years ago with the current range, even though they are supposed to be the same. Exactly. And I'm still waiting for paint to dry. So yeah, we'll talk about this a bit more as well. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point, because the thing is, when Cote d'Arms were making their paints, is as much as they were selling them to GW to sell as their products, Cote d'Arms still owns the recipe, as it were. So, you know, even though the recipe for, you know, your Space Wolf stuff, you know, it's owned by Cote d'Arms. So the only thing that they could do when Citadel took over was Citadel was supposed to look at these paints and go, okay, we can make that. And so, yeah, when they're trying to colour match and it's not perfect. I mean, if I think about this, if I come up with, which one is this? No, that's the wrong one. Heavy Red, that's the one. Heavy Red. Now, this is separated a bit as well. But this is, let's bring this up on the bigger colour. So you see, this is Vallejo's Extra Opaque Heavy Red. Now this is supposed to be colour matched for Mephiston Red. And you can see that there is quite a difference between those two, even though, you know, theoretically, when Vallejo decided to make this colour, it was supposed to be a colour match for this. And so, yeah, I mean, it's close, but not quite. And yeah, so there is an issue, and that's it. I mean, if you can get used to a color palette that you want to use from Vallejo, or if you want to use a color palette that you want to use from Citadel, yeah, fair enough. But yeah, if any of one of them change, it will never done. I've done loads of trials and know, like, even with the colors from Cote d'Arms' current range, it still doesn't match what I have painted. I may have to repaint my entire wolf army. Wow, that sucks. I didn't realise that Cote d'Arms couldn't even colour match their own paint. That's weird. But that's rough. Yeah, that sucks. Right, what's going on with my phone? Stop being silly. What's going on here? Well, that doesn't make any sense. What's going on there? That's what I want. Okie dokie. Right, what am I going to do now? We're still waiting for some paint to dry. I didn't realise that I was going to be catching up with myself so quickly. Wait, that's not helpful. Right, okay. So let's have a gander here, shall we? Let's bring this up to the camera. Is it on auto? I'm not even sure if it's on auto, to be honest with you. What do we think about that blending then, hey? That's had some time to dry. I think it could be a whole lot worse than what it could have been. Let's have a look on the other side there, shall we? I think there's that highlight on this ridge here is a bit high, but it could be worse. I've painted my walls with paints from GW in the late 90s and early 2000s, and I can't get any matched. Not a happy man. No, I imagine you're not. That is a real issue. You know, with paint being changed, it's a real issue. Do you know when you're streaming painting miniatures, it's actually best to manually focus? I've never had my cameras on autofocus. No, but the problem is I'm using webcams that are the same watch it, so I'm not sure I can actually change this camera that I'm using here. If I change the focus on this one, yeah, this. Oh no, that is the right one. Oh right, okay, that's handy. I didn't realise. I have turned it off on autofocus, but hang on then. Let's bring that up here. Let's bring that into focus here. There we go. Look at that. What do we think? I didn't realise that this was the camera that was on focus, to be honest with you. I think that could have been a lot worse. Let's see what that says. Of course, you're using the C920s. They're fantastic cameras, I tell you. They are pretty good. But I'm quite happy with that. I think the highlight that goes that's at the top there is a little bit stark compared to the rest of the layering. But for a second attempt at properly trying to layer a cloak, I'm pretty happy with that. That could have been a lot worse. There we go. Bring that back into focus here. There we are. Hey Reese, welcome to the show. There I've got two C920s and a C922. You know what I would love to know, actually? I'll tell you what, this is something I could never have done this a few weeks ago. Is I want to have a look at what my other webcam is that I'm using. Is the C110. That's my face cam, which is why it's not looking too brilliant, because you know I've had to. This is one that I had knocking around for years. And I thought I'd use that one so that I've got, you know, because, you know, now that you can see, you know, when I've got the desk cam going up here, which is a lovely, fantastic HD picture. And also when I have done some filming over in the airbrush booth there. And that's my other, you know, HD cam. So when I come over here, it means that I've got these, which, you know, it's a little bit dodgy, but then when me and Reese play Kill Team live on stream, we have got cameras absolutely everywhere, and there are going to be some fantastic shots. And then once we get the better rig and we can start building cameras all over the place, yeah, it's going to be nuts. It's going to be fantastic. C110, I don't know that cam. That's fair enough. I'll tell you what we'll do is if I bring this up here like this, and if I pull that out and go over here, whee, there we go, camception going on here. There we go. It's a really old thing that's just, yeah, it's an old thing. It's not even HD, so well, I don't think it is. It probably isn't. So looking forward to Live Kill Team. Yeah, I am too. Actually, I'm looking forward to the way that I've got this set up. As I was showing in one of the shows the other earlier on in the week, we got a special dice cam. I've got my 2 expensive cameras going on. I've got so many cameras going along here that I've got a lot of cameras around the room that, you know, some are good, some are not so good. Let's move that back down there. But overall, I've got the angles now. Once we get the new rig built, which is what that's all about, then yeah, we're gonna have HD the lot, better microphones eventually after that as well, and just overall it's just gonna be, yeah, I've got plans. And I'll tell you what, actually, do you guys want to see the new computer? It's only a little thing. We're gonna build this up. It's gonna look fantastic. Wait, there we go. Let's bring that up. There we go. You see, lovely little thing going on there. It's currently empty. It's just a case at the minute, but you know, that's what we're building towards. Considering I don't know if anybody of you, if you've seen the hole that I have in the side of the computer I've already got, just so that I could ram a graphics card in there. But yeah, we're gonna get that built. It'll be built and we'll get there. And now, because we've managed to get the OBS working rather than using XSplit, I don't have to pay for XSplit anymore. I can't multi-stream yet, but we can do that in the future. Yeah, well, I'm quite happy where I am here on YouTube. So yeah, we'll see. I have an audio on. Kill Team should be fun. You're not listening? Okay, fair enough. Yeah, Kill Team will be fun. With 4 cameras. We got all the bases covered. Eventually we'll have 6. It would be lovely if I could have 6. I'm not sure. You see, the thing is, I'm not sure where the cutoff is for my computer. I do have another little thing poking around here, which is even worse. It's an even older camera, this is. Wait, I don't even know what make this is. TVG, is that it? Yeah, I mean, this is terrible. This is a horrible camera. But the thing is, I plugged this into my computer. That wouldn't even register on the thing. With the 4 cameras I've already got plugged in. I'm not sure whether that's a graphics issue, whether it's a CPU issue, or whether it's just generally, you know, come on, you've already got 4. I don't know whether it's an OBS thing, but hopefully there will be yeah, you can have as many webcams as you want. There is no cutoff as far as I know. There is something, there's got to be something, because I can't run the 4 that I've got. I can't run all 4 at the same time. I have to, you know, especially if you watch when we go to various angles, that's a nice smooth transition between the 2. But if you watch my face cam, it pops up. That's because I've had to deactivate it when it's not on show. And so, you know, it's currently, this camera is currently activated now, because you can see it, but I have to actually deactivate the cameras when they're not on show, because I can't run all 4 at the same time. At most I can get 3, I think. I can possibly get I can get the fire cam on show at the same time, but I can't run all 4 of them at the same time. So I can't run that and the dice cam. I can't, which isn't plugged in at the minute anyway. So it's I don't know. Could it be a computer issue? It might be a computer issue. Maybe it's too many graphics, especially considering it's you know, I'm using 2 HD cameras. And I mean, the thing is with with XSplit, I could only run the 2 HD cameras. I couldn't even run that one. So, whereas now I can run 3 at the same time, I can have 4 connected. So we'll see what we're going on. And I think we're heading towards the end of the show, actually. I'm not going to do any more painting now, so I'm going to finish off having a chat about this. So yeah, we've got some plans for the future. And I'm glad that you guys are coming along for the ride, because it's I'm looking forward to it. We've got plenty of plans, like Wayne was saying in the Patreon chat. You know, sharing the video around is all helpful. The more people you get interested in the channel, the more people that you get interested in the show, then the more it's all going to come together nicely, and we'll have some good times to be had, some good paintings to be done. And I'm sure that eventually, when models come along that I'm not going to be bothered to keeping, then there'll be some giveaways to be had too, which will be I'm looking forward to getting to that stage. Speaking of wrapping up the show, the missus just got back with the daughter. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the future, and I'm glad you guys are coming along for it. So let's just have a quick roundup of what we've got done today. Is good old Gabriel Seth. He's got his red done. We'll wait for that to dry, and we'll get some highlights done on him next week. And I'm happy with that cloak. The cloak's come together quite nicely. Well, I need to do a bit of research. I just need to find out whether there's any red supposed to be on that, or whether it's purely just black. If anybody knows about Flesh Terror backpacks, give me a shout. I could always probably have a look at my Blood Angel Codex. It'll probably be in there as well. But yeah, and just a couple of final highlights to be done on his backpack. But yeah, I think we're going to be focusing on this guy quite a bit over the next few weeks. Adding some highlights and stuff to him, getting those details done. And I do still have his chain, well, the massive great big thing that he's got going on here. I haven't primed that yet. It's still a bit wonky. I think I'm just going to leave it as it is, but we'll get that done as well. That'll probably be a week in himself. So yeah, so there we go. All right, well, I think that pretty much wraps it up today, because if I carry on doing anything else now, it's you know, I'm gonna have to start something new or whatever. So I'm pretty happy about this, what we've got done today. I'm happy that I stretched those skills going into layering. I'll be interested to see what the next cloak that I do, whenever that will be done, and how that looks like when it's done. To Wayne, Chris, Viking and Reese, thank you very much for joining me tonight. It's been a pleasure. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you like it. Give me a share, or maybe not share this now because I'm wrapping it up and there's no point, but yeah, thank you very much. And don't forget, check out the links below. In fact, I'll pop in the links in the description as well, which is not there. That's not where they go. They go here. The links to myself, to my social media, will be in the channel there, which I'm rolling through there. I don't do it very often because it's there's a lot of information going on there. There we go. And the Patreon link is there as well if you want to help support the channel, if you haven't already done so, like Wayne has, and so has Reese and Tim as well. I forgot to say thank you to Tim. But other than that, yeah, the next show will be on Monday, hopefully, if I get a Conquest delivery. We'll keep an eye out on Instagram for that. As soon as that comes through the door, Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, I'll put a post up saying that they're there, so that we know that the show is going ahead as planned. Even if I don't get a delivery, there will be a show on Monday, but what we'll be doing there, I have no idea. And also Tuesday is a live kill team with Reese. So go ahead and check out her Instagram as well. But other than that, for you guys watching at home, thank you very much for joining me. I think it's been a reasonable show tonight. So yeah, thank you all for joining me this time. I'll catch you in the next one. Alright guys, ta-ra.
black and blue with that. Am I correct?